Day 3 of Lock and Lean. It's over. It's done. I have finished it. And man, what an endurance test. Day 3, honestly, was the toughest day for me because I was exhausted. Training that much and spending 7 to 8 hours a day riding around in circles in the parking lot, that's rough. It was a lot. I'm definitely glad I did it. I learned a lot. So let's go ahead and talk about what I did in day 3. Day 3 reinforced the process. And the key part of the process that really resonated with me is MMA. Manage your speed going into whatever course you're going to run. Maximize the space, which is very important, and attacking the dead zones. And all three of those key things is what I really tried to focus on today. Even though I was exhausted, I really tried to do that. And I think I did pretty well today, except for the one thing, and that was the figure eight. The figure eight was challenging to me only because it had basically a right or a clockwise circle, and that was just messing with my head all day. And I really think it was literally in my head. It's not that I couldn't do it, but I had convinced myself that I couldn't do it. So I believed myself, and as a result, I kept running over cones. But I didn't drop my bike today. But I'm pretty sure I got some pretty angry cones that are in surgery trying to be repaired after what I did to them today. So basically, we did a series of left and right turns today. U-turns, again, both left and right. I didn't fall in a U-turn this time, thank God. And actually, I completed all of my U-turns. I didn't have any problems finishing the U-turns today. The right U-turn was still a little bit unnerving for me as I'm trying to reprogram my brain to use a little bit less rear brake, or actually just be consistent. I think it's okay to use the rear brake, but whatever you do, you just have to be consistent so that there's no jerky motion in the bike. In other words, that turn just needs to be smooth and fluid all the way throughout. And so I'm going to continue to work on that. I'm going to practice my right turns a lot, or right U-turns. Talked about the figure eight, which they call the switchback. So in my initial video when I announced the class, I said I had no idea what the switchback is. The switchback is a figure eight. We also added a new exercise today, the offset cone weave, but it was tight and I knocked it out of the park. Did great, so I was pretty happy with that. I had no problem with that. I did have to work on controlling my speed a little bit. I got a little bit happy going through there. I will say I'll give some kudos to Robert Simmons because he really helped me improve my offset cone weave. But they tightened that bad boy up quite a bit. It's tighter than I'd ever done it personally, but I didn't have any problems with it because you do the same process, doesn't matter how tight it is. And then the other thing that was new today, we did a variation of follow the leader, except this time it was one-on-one. And so because there was only 6 people in the class, or 4 today, the instructor did a follow the leader with each person, focusing on their weaknesses or their greatest opportunities. And obviously for me, it was the right turn. And the key thing I learned from that was just keep your head up and look at where you're going, look for the exit. And that made a huge difference for me. And I think that's the only reason I was able to get it or finish the figure eight today, is because we did that exercise. So, that was pretty awesome. So my challenges, I just mentioned, keeping my head up and looking for the exit. That's huge, because once you start a turn, that right turn for me, again, you're maximizing your space, trying to stay to the far left and maximizing the space all the way through. And then you got to turn around and look for the exit. I normally look for the cones and I run them right over. So I've got to work on that. The keyhole, the right or the clockwise keyhole, I'm going to work on that as well. And I'm going to try to focus on, I'm going to call it stabilizing my rear brake pressure, just being consistent with it. The instructor kind of gave me some good feedback because yesterday, one of the things that I started doing was just not using the rear brake at all. And his concern was that was just as bad, because if I need the rear brake, my foot's not on it, then I'm going to slam on the rear brake and just cause more problems. So the goal is just, for me, is just to maintain consistent pressure on the rear brake and not pump it. All right, so my final thoughts. Completing this course, for me, it's it's the beginning. I'm going to continue to practice just like I have with every other course that I've completed. When I finished the basic rider course, practice, practice, practice. After I discovered Robert Simmons, I practiced with him and then practice, practice, practice some more. Now I've done lock and lean, and I'm going to continue my same process because it's working for me. You have to keep practicing. You have to keep practicing and focusing on the things that you need to improve on, and that's what I'm going to do. I also plan to take another class with lock and lean. They have a 102, what they call their lock and lean 102 class. And in that class, it's higher speeds, and the patterns are, from what they described it, they're kind of grouped together instead of having just a U-turn or just a figure eight, or you're going to have a variety of patterns mixed together to challenge your skills. It's going to be higher speeds. So I'm looking forward to doing that, but I'm going to do that a little bit later in the year because I know that I have some things I need to work on before I take on another class because I want to get the most out of it. I'm also looking into taking the Champ Riding School. I'm not going to do that this year, maybe next year at the earliest, no later than year after next. And of course, I'm going to continue going down to Pooler and practice with Rob. Now, I will tell you that I am glad that I didn't take my Road Glide down there. I love my bike, don't get me wrong, but I made some changes to this bike about a week before the class. One of them being the tires. So I have a 21-inch front tire, 18-inch in the rear. I don't think that's going to be a problem. The problem is I also changed my clutch, and I'll talk about that in a future video, but I put the Screaming Eagle clutch in here, or clutch plates. I don't know if that was a good idea, especially not right before taking the class, but it was slipping so bad I didn't have a choice. So that's why I chose not to take my Road Glide. I took the Street Glide, and man, it turned out a lot better than I thought. Most of the bikes that were there were actually Road Kings. And there was one person with a Road Glide. I had a Street Glide, everybody else had a Road King. So the Road Kings seemed to fare a whole lot better. So I had an opportunity to ride the police officer's Road King. I didn't like it. But I imagine if I got used to it, it wouldn't be so bad. It could have been that maybe it was just a slightly older bike and it just felt different than my Street Glide. So there might be a new motorcycle in my future. I don't know. I got to think about that. All right, so I'll wrap this up by saying, again, thank you to Pensacola Harley Davidson. I also want to give a shout out to Ken, the instructor. I really appreciate you. I think you did a fantastic job. I appreciate all the advice you gave me. I'm going to run with that. And the next time we get together, hopefully you'll see a difference. And I also want to give a big shout out to all of the other riders that I took the class with. Having a 6-to-1, 6 students, 1 instructor, it was more like having 6 instructors, or 7 instructors actually, because we all coached one another as well and encouraged one another and pushed each other along. And that just made such a huge difference in the class. So thank you to all you guys that were there with me. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again at some future event. And stay tuned for my one last video that I'm going to do talking about lock and lean, and that'll be next week, sometime next week, because I'm going to do a comparison between the 3 training opportunities that I've taken: the basic rider course, Be the Boss of Your Motorcycle, and now lock and lean. So we're going to talk about how each one of these courses complement one another and also some of the differences between them. And I'll also talk about, how to prepare for them and how they benefit you. This is Q. I'm riding, I'm wrenching, locking and leaning, and I'm out.